Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're digging into XRP.
Right. It's been a topic of much discussion lately.
Exactly. Its price has felt, well, kind of stuck for months, hasn't it? But we've been looking at some recent Cointelegraph reports.
Interesting. What are they saying?
Well, they suggest experts are actually pointing to a potentially explosive breakout, possibly even into double digits.
Double digits. Wow. And soon.
Potentially as soon as this summer, yeah. So the big question is, what exactly are they seeing that we might be missing?
Okay.
Our mission today is to really pull out the key nuggets from these sources, help you understand the forces at play, and what might actually be coming for XRP. So let's start with the current picture. XRP's recent price action.
The consolidation phase, right?
Precisely. It's been trading without a really clear direction. One source we looked at mentioned it being stuck between $2 and $2.60 since early March.
Okay.
Another one noted a range more like $2 and $2.40 over the last, say, 90 days.
So pretty tight, basically sideways.
Yeah, basically sideways since that high back in January. Was it $3.40? And since then, just repeated attempts to break out, but no dice.
It's interesting how this quiet period, this stagnation, is actually being framed by some analysts as a positive thing, like a necessary setup.
Right.
But, playing devil's advocate here,
Yeah.
couldn't this just mean there's not enough buying pressure? Or maybe there's a really strong resistance level it just can't crack.
That's a fair point.
So what specific data are these analysts citing that makes them so confident this isn't just, weakness, but actually a launch pad for $5 or even higher? What makes them dismiss those counterarguments?
That's exactly where we need to go next, and it brings us straight to the first big catalyst. To really answer that question, why the bullishness now, we have to look at Ripple itself.
Okay, the company's moves.
Exactly. A huge driver seems to be Ripple's own strategic actions. They're actively expanding their ecosystem.
Right, like the acquisitions.
Yes. And the big one is that staggering $1.25 billion acquisition of Hidden Road. That's a prime brokerage.
Which is a big deal for institutional access,
A
right?
huge deal. For listeners maybe not familiar, a prime brokerage offers all those complex trading services for like the big hedge funds and institutional players.
So it's Ripple stepping seriously into that traditional finance world.
Absolutely. It kind of redefines XRP's potential use cases. They plan to use their stablecoin, RLUSD, as collateral there too.
Interesting integration.
And Ripple CTO David Schwartz, he basically said, our M&A people are very busy. He mentioned multiple potential deals in the works.
On top of Minoko and Standard Custody, which they already bought?
Correct. So a clear pattern of buying up infrastructure. And it's not just acquisitions. Ripple's also upgrading its own tech, the XRP ledger, the XRPL.
Ah, yes, adding more programmability.
Exactly. And a new lending protocol is planned too, according to Schwartz. Plus, very recently, like just June 26th, they announced a partnership with Wormhole.
Wormhole for interoperability.
Yeah, aimed at expanding multi-chain interoperability, making it easier for XRPL to connect and, work with other blockchains, and also for its upcoming EVM sidechain.
Okay, so EVM compatibility, that opens it up to the whole Ethereum ecosystem of apps.
Precisely. Think of it like enabling different blockchain languages to talk to each other smoothly. These upgrades, they kind of remind you of Ethereum's own development path, promising a much richer environment for XRP.
Yeah, it's really fascinating there is how all these moves position Ripple beyond just, simple payments.
Right.
If you zoom out, these upgrade scalability, interoperability, they're absolutely critical for boosting XRP demand, not just for cross-border stuff, but for DeFi too.
Decentralized finance, yeah.
It really looks like Ripple is shoring up its core foundations.
Yeah.
And historically, that kind of infrastructure strengthening drives adoption, drives demand.
Makes sense.
But I do wonder, how much does all this still depend on getting clearer regulations globally? That's always been a bit of an overhang for Ripple and XRP, hasn't it?
That is a crucial point, absolutely. Regulation is always part of the picture. But even with that uncertainty, the market itself seems to be showing more and more appetite for XRP.
From institutions and retail.
Both, yeah. And that brings us neatly to our second major factor. Market demand is growing.
Okay. How are we seeing that?
Well, one really strong signal is the launch of CME XRP futures.
Ah, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. That's significant.
Very significant. Both standard and micro contracts launched back on May 19th. And the uptake was, well, pretty immediate. Get this. In their first month, they amassed over $542.8 million in notional trading volume.
$500 million.
In just a month.
Yep, half a billion. Notional volume, so the total value of contracts traded. It's a key measure of market activity.
That's a pretty loud statement from the traditional finance world.
It really is. It's more than just a big number. It feels like a turning point. XRP is being treated as a legit, regulated financial instrument by the big players.
Which is often what you need for that really significant capital to flow in. Exactly. Something other assets maybe struggle to achieve so early. On day one alone, they saw $19.3 million traded across 15 firms and 4 retail platforms.
So widespread participation right off the bat.
Yeah, significant market interest, as the source put it. And it's diverse ETF issuers, individual traders. It's global, too. Over 24,600 contracts traded in that first month, and nearly half the participants were from outside the U.S.
Wow. Okay, so the futures market is definitely showing strong demands. What else?
Well, beyond futures, there's growing buzz around a potential spot XRP ETF.
Ah, the ETF narrative.
Yeah.
Always a big one in crypto.
It really is. The thinking is, if a spot XRP ETF gets approved, that could unleash even more capital into XRP products, really cementing it as a mainstream asset.
And what are the odds looking like?
Pretty high, actually. On Polymarket, the betting odds for an XRP ETF approval by the end of this year, December 31st, are sitting at 76%.
76%, that is quite high. But, we've seen crypto ETFs hit roadblocks before, delays, rejections.
Yeah.
What do you think is the single biggest hurdle left for an XRP ETF? And just how crucial is that approval for this major price move potential? Because these regulated products, they bring legitimacy, yes, but they also bring in a different kind of investor.
Yeah, you're right. The path to an ETF is never guaranteed. But okay, let's connect these dots. We've got Ripple making big moves. We've got growing institutional interest. What does this all look like on the price chart?
Right, the technical analysis side. What are the chart watchers saying?
Well, this is where it gets quite specific. Technical analysts are offering some compelling insights and some pretty ambitious price targets, too.
Okay, let's hear them. First, the when. Is there a time frame?
There is. One analyst, Crypto, predicts the XRP breakout is coming specifically between early July and mid-September 2025.
July to September. It's quite soon. What's the reasoning?
It's based on chart patterns. Apparently, XRP formed a large symmetrical triangle on the monthly chart.
Okay, a classic consolidation pattern often precedes a big move.
Exactly. And historically, these triangle patterns tend to resolve, meaning break out, somewhere between the 75% and 95% completion point of the pattern's duration.
Right.
So XRP has been in this triangle for 334 days. 75% of that is about 251 days, which points to early July. 95% is about 317 days, pointing to mid-September.
Huh. Interesting calculation based on historical pattern behavior.
And then there's the how high question.
Yeah?
The price targets floating around are, well, definitely attention-grabbing.
Let's hear them.
Okay, so analyst X-Force Global, using Elliott wave analysis.
That's the one looking for long-term repetitive cycles, right?
Yeah. They project a possible breakout to $5, but they also have a longer-term cycle target of $20 to $30.
$20 to $30. Wow. Okay.
Crypto, using Fibonacci extensions around that triangle pattern.
SHIB levels. Okay.
They project a target range of $8 to $27.
8 to 27. Also very significant upside.
Then there's Mikey Bull Crypto, who predicts a rally similar to 2017, targeting $14.
$14.
And another source we saw confirmed that a breakout from a different pattern, a pennant, could also potentially lead to $14. That would be like a 564% gain from current levels.
Okay, so multiple analysts pointing towards double-digit potential using different methods.
Seems that way. And then you have DustDBC Crypto just stating bluntly, XRP under $2 is incredibly cheap. Bookmark this post. Look back in 6 months.
Bold statement. Confidence is high in some quarters.
But for any of these optimistic scenarios to play out, XRP needs to actually break through some key resistance levels first. It's not just going to magically jump there.
Of course. What are the key levels traders are watching?
According to Cointelegraph, a real rally towards $3 and higher probably starts only after buyers push the price firmly above $2.65. That's seen as the top of the current consolidation range.
Okay, $2.65 is the first major hurdle.
Then the bulls are really focused on breaking the zone between $2.22 and $2.40.
Why those levels specifically?
$2.22 is roughly the 100-day moving average, and $2.40 is the 200-day moving average.
Ah, key momentum indicators. Lots of traders watch those SMAs.
Exactly. Getting a solid close above that $2.40 level, the thinking goes, could open the door back to $3, maybe even challenging that $3.40 high from January.
Makes sense. Any other key levels mentioned?
Yeah, another popular XRP analyst, Cassie Trades, said that while momentum seems to be returning, price must break above two specific macro levels: $2.25,
Okay.
which is the 0.382 Fibonacci retracement level from a larger move,
Right, a significant pullback level.
and then $2.69, which is the 0.236 retracement. If XRP can clear both of those with real strength, that would confirm a true trend shift, according to this analyst.
Okay, so this technical analysis really gives us a roadmap, doesn't it? It's not just wishful thinking, it's specific price points. If XRP crosses $2.25, then $2.40, then $2.69, $2.69. Each one could signal a further shift.
Exactly, concrete levels to watch.
What's striking is how many different analysts using different tools, triangles, waves, fibs, moving averages, seem to be converging on similar conclusions or key levels. That suggests a pretty strong underlying technical picture.
Yeah, it does seem to add weight.
But beyond just these specific price points,
Yeah.
looking at all the technicals together, what's the single most compelling piece of that puzzle for you? What really shouts potential massive upward move?
You know, when we circle back to that initial question, why are so many experts suddenly seeing this massive potential despite the flat price? The answer really isn't just one thing, is it?
No, it seems like a combination.
It really does. It's this powerful mix. You've got Ripple being super aggressive with its strategy, expanding its ecosystem.
Right, the acquisitions, the tech upgrades.
Then you have the traditional finance world starting to embrace it more seriously,
Yeah.
with the CME futures showing real volume and the potential for an ETF.
Growing institutional validation.
And then you layer on the technical charts with multiple analysts seeing these classic breakout patterns and pointing to significant upside targets, identifying those key resistance levels.
It all converges.
Exactly. It paints a pretty consistent picture, doesn't it?
It certainly builds a compelling case. We've laid out how Ripple's strategic growth, that increasing institutional interest, and these specific technical signals are all lining up. It makes you think. So maybe a final thought for our listeners to ponder. As you consider all these factors we discussed, how might this evolution of digital asset infrastructure, things like the XRPL getting more programmable, more connected to other chains, how might that fundamentally reshape traditional finance in the coming years, thinking beyond just the price of XRP itself?
That's a great question to leave people with. How deep could these changes run? And as always, just a quick reminder, this deep dive is purely for informational purposes. It doesn't contain any investment advice or recommendations. Always do your own research.